All right, we're just going to go right to questions. If you can please wait for a microphone and state your name and affiliation, please. Start with Dan Savage.
Jeff, Dan Savage, OrlandoMagic.com. Looking at lottery night, when you land the number 1 overall pick, all the conversations, everything with the draft starts through you guys. Just how have you seen that play out in your favor through this process?
Well, I mean, obviously, we're getting calls on the pick, and all teams have to come through us if they have the ultimate desire to get to pick whoever they want. So, believe it or not, we sit here on Monday before the draft. I tell you, it's still early in the process, and dialogue is always ongoing. But most importantly, we get to do what we want, and that's the real benefit of having the number 1 pick. So it really hasn't altered the process a whole lot. We do our work, and we try to be as careful as we can and as thorough as we can. But I don't think that having the number 1 pick has changed the way that we work.
Go ahead.
Kobe Price, Orlando Sentinel. Jeff, you mentioned it, having number 1 pick, get calls, dialogue is created. Do you expect to use the number 1 pick or make that selection yourself?
I'm always amazed that trades get made at all, as many things as have to go into one to be successful. So I always expect us to make the pick. I expect us to make this pick. That said, obviously, it's our job to explore any avenue to get our team better, and we'll take as much time as we can to do that.
Yeah, and with having the number 1 pick, have you found that this process has confirmed maybe belief that you had before you start working out guys in terms of maybe guys that you like the most or guys that you have questions about? Did you feel like this process confirmed things, or have you, learned things that you quite didn't know about certain guys?
Well, for sure, it's confirmed that there are a lot of talented players at the top of this draft. That's for sure, which we kind of felt this whole season. Yeah, you get to learn more about guys as you have contact points with them and kind of push buttons and spend time with them. It's a big part of the process, but it's also, just a multi-layered way of doing it. So yeah, when you bring guys in or whatever kind of touch points, or even like as we apply our own internal layers of, analytics and everything else that we kind of bring to bear, you find out who the guy is. That's the job, right? To try to find out who the person is and who the player is, and the more time you get to concentrate on that, the better off you're going to be theoretically. And obviously we spend a lot of time refining like the process and how our conversations internally go. So if that answers the question.
Go ahead, Philip Rossman-Reich, Orlando Magic Daily. At least in the way that the media and maybe some fans are talking about this draft, it's a 2, maybe 3-person race for who should be the number 1 pick. Most drafts, typically, you kind of have a sense of who the number 1 guy is. Obviously, you still do the work and still do your research and your process to suss that out. But how unique is this draft in that there are a lot of guys kind of in the running for that top pick, and there's a real choice there for you guys to make?
I think that's as much for you to answer as for me. I think that we've seen drafts before where people weren't sure who the number 1 pick is going to be, and we've seen some where it's kind of a foregone conclusion. So I don't know how unique it is. I mean, it is kind of what it is, and it kind of probably, I would say, for the fans, makes it fun.
Go ahead, Tim.
Tim Reynolds with the AP. Hi, Jeff.
Where are you, Tim?
I'm on your right.
Oh, there you
I always get that wrong, the whole looking at
can't
somebody
really
thing. So, if we all promise not to ask you who, do you have an idea, if you had to do it right now, who it would be? We did poll earlier. We're not going to ask who, we promise. But
I'll say this. My dad used to tell me, if the paper is due on Friday, don't turn it in on Monday. So, we're going to continue to evaluate. We're having meetings. Unfortunately, I had to have a lot of our guys in yesterday and cut Father's Day short. But we're continuing to evaluate and discuss, and new information comes in, believe it or not, still now, all the time. So we'll continue to go through the process and get to the point where we have to make our decision on Thursday night.
Wanted to make clear that the papers due Thursday, not Friday, just so you know. That would be bad.
Let me put that in my calendar.
Thank you. One quick follow-up along the lines of Philip's question. I guess there is no absolute answer, and not getting into the nuances of player X versus player Y versus player Z versus whatever, but like, what is the next 72 hours like for you? I mean, no matter what, if you keep the pick, you're going to draft a really good player. Whichever direction you go, there's going to be an argument to be made to say, this is why the Magic went in that direction. So I guess at the end of the day, what do you hone in on and identify as, okay, this is what we need the most, this is what we want right now?
Yeah. I mean, it's a great question, and if I had an easy answer, then we wouldn't have to meet for the next 3 days. Someone once told me, many, many, many years ago, that if the draft were held one day earlier or one day later, it would be entirely different. And I believe that's true. So conversations happen, new information gets unveiled, and to your question, obviously, there are just so many things that go into this. It's talent, it's fit, it's character, it's the projection, it's where the league is going. There's so many things that factor into a conversation like this that you can literally go on for months more arguing it, and that's kind of like what makes it fun, right? I mean, it's been a fun process, and getting to know guys and evaluate them and study them and look at our team through different lenses because of this pick. So, that's part of what we're doing now.
Go ahead, Shane.
Jeff, here in the back. Have you seen the movie Draft Day with Kevin Costner?
I have not.
He's the general manager of the Browns in the movie. Anyway, on draft day, he wrote down on a piece of paper player's name, Joel Glass, no matter what. Is that the point? Is that where you're trying to get on Thursday, or do you have to stay open all the way through to when the time comes?
Yeah, no, I think it's our job to stay open to all information, to stay open to new ideas, to not kind of dig your heels in too vigorously because there might be some other opinion that sways you, and this isn't about digging heels in. This is about getting the right guy here. So we actually had one of our guys actually reached out to a bunch of teams who have picked number one and asked them, what were the pitfalls that you went through, and kind of that was one of the things that came up was don't get married too quickly, which I thought was an interesting little nugget to your question.
Hey, Jeff, to your right, Adam Shadow, Fox 35. We know that you had Chet Holmgren in, and we know you had Jabari Smith in. Have you had Paulo Banchero in yet?
Adam, there's so much subterfuge going on, and there's so much gamesmanship that I think that one of the things that we've done well and do well, and I'm really proud of our guys for being able to say this, is we are buttoned up. And I think it's really important to act that way. So whatever the chatter is, whatever the rumors are, I'll never get involved in that. I'll tell you that we've had more players in than have been reported, but I will not ever get into speaking about details or visits or this or that. And honestly, I think that serves a good purpose because not only I think is it important for us to keep our information discreetly so that the players know that they can trust us, but it's also important when teams call, because I do believe that we're a team that other teams know they can make discreet phone calls to and it won't get out. So the way that you manage information is a big part of this business, so I'm not going to comment on any of that kind of thing.
So just a little follow-up there.
Of course.
Have you learned things about the guys when you've had them in that you had no idea about, and how valuable was it when you had guys in?
It's getting to know someone. So if you were hiring someone for your in your job, and you're bringing in someone new to your company, and they spent time with you, you get to know them. So you try to figure out how to make the most out of that time. It could be, a meeting in Chicago, it could be a Zoom, it could be a visit, it could be a whole host of different, ways to have contact points. And obviously, like, we're just trying to find out at that point, who the person is, because that matters a lot to us.
Hey Jeff, Luke Hetrick, Spectrum
Hey, Luke.
Sports 360. I don't want to get a sneak peek of your board here unless you're willing to give it up, but how many players are you considering with that first pick?
60. I would say that the conversation doesn't just stay on that pick because we have to be prepared to jump around. So I say that kind of in jest, but you understand what I'm saying. So we have to be prepared for conversations to become real and being able to act on those if so. So it's not like we're just talking about the top, 2 or 3 guys, however the mock draft boards have it.
Just to follow up on that, I know you said about turning in the assignment, when it's due, but when do you want to have a decision made internally?
We won't have it made until it's time to make it, honestly.
Aaron Goldstone, Orlando Pinstripe Post. Thanks for meeting with us, Jeff. So much attention about the first pick, but your team obviously has picks 32 and 35 as well in the second round, very early. How complicated does it get at this point in the process when you look at making those picks and you have to balance the age composition of your roster and availability in your roster and your board, and just how many moving parts are there when it comes to making those 2 picks?
I mean, it's a great question, and I appreciate you kind of half answered it, the way that you asked it. I appreciate that. It's very complicated, and obviously, we don't want to spend 99% of our time on the top pick and disregard these other 2 picks, So we're trying to always find the right balance of, how much time equity we can pour into that. And obviously, because of the nature of those picks, there's probably more action there. It's a unique talk that you have that gets serious about the number 1 pick. But 32 and 35, there are a lot of talks going on. And you bring up a lot of points that are relevant to the answer, which is how many rookies do we want this year? We've got a young team already. How can we keep the pathway clear for our young players to develop? With that will come a whole bunch of explorations about what to do with those 2 picks, and it's almost like you can just go on forever the if-thens and play that out. We could literally take all day, every day, just to deal with those. But obviously, we've got other important matters to deal with. But there is a lot that goes into those conversations, and I think we're getting an understanding of how those picks line up with the rankings on our board. Getting back to Adam's question, it has to be, it's not just, the top few, you have to go all the way down through the draft. And so, that's where we are, but I feel like we're in a good place. We understand the motivations of teams. We're starting to get a kind of a semblance of how our board looks at different parts of the, where those picks would fall. And, we'll see where those conversations go in the next few days.
Obviously, during this process, there was a loss in the front office with Matt reportedly going to Minnesota. How I know he said it, I think publicly at one point that most of the work had already been done for the pre-draft prep, but how big of a loss was that as you're preparing to make this decision?
Well, first, let me just say, Matt Lloyd, man, we are so happy for Matt Lloyd. These are the kind of calls that you work your career to get, and Matt deserves it. He's been a great servant to everyone here at the Magic, and kind of leadership through service. He's the ultimate embodiment of that. So really happy for Matt that he's been given this opportunity. I know he's going to do great. Listen, we are going to handle this internally. We'll have more announcements to make over the summer, exactly how that will look. But I'm excited because we have a lot of bright young talent that we work hard to develop. And so I think that we are going to probably re-examine a lot of the ways that we do things and maybe redistribute some of the work and come out, I think, in a way that'll be hopefully even more productive. And so I'm excited for Matt, and I'm very excited for us.
Jeff, 30 presidents would probably answer this 30 different ways, but since you're the guy with the golden ticket, how do you, when you go through this process, I guess, how do you balance, there's obviously an urgency to win now. I mean, everybody wants to win now, of course, and you want to build it the right way. You want to build it for sustainable winning. So I guess how do all those factors kind of weigh against one another? How you want to be good 3 years from now, good 6 years from now, but also, you know, good tomorrow too. And how does that all factor into the process?
Yep. That is such a great question. And when we talk about all the things that go into our draft conversations, you know, I mean, there's no component that's siloed, you know. I mean, everything affects everything else when you're looking at the roster construction and the draft and free agency and everything. And the 50,000-foot view that we try to take before we start to drill down on some of those is just what you asked. So what are you trying to do? And I'll say this. I think you guys know that we didn't do all the roster deconstruction that we did and have gone through what we've gone through so that we can rush back to the middle. That's not what we're trying to do. That said, there are a whole lot of different permutations to that. And I would say that right now, we want to play better basketball. We want to make fewer mistakes. We want to increase our IQ. We want to build chemistry and continuity. And we want to continue to understand which of our players are going to impact winning. And so that's a really relevant question. I would say it's the first filter for everything else that we look at. And we do want to get better, but not at the expense of rushing back to mediocrity. And we do want to have something sustainable. But then you get into, you have to elevate the standard to do that. You can't just stay at the basement level, you know, interminably. So those are conversations that we're having. Which players do that for us? Obviously, part of this, you know, time is spent on our free agent board, and I'm not sure how aggressive we'll be or not. We'll see when the time comes. But you know, that's a really great question, and it's a really important question, and I would say it's the first layer of everything that we look at.
Go ahead, Luke.
Jeff, just going back to this, last year when you were going through this process, you had just hired Jamal. He was putting his staff together at this time, so there was a lot of moving parts with those 2 lottery picks. Now that you've had a full year with him and his staff, you know, what's the impact that has, you know, on the decision and kind of the overall process for you?
Yeah. I mean, I think Coach Mosley's done a great job. I think his staff has done an amazing job, not just kind of growing together. You know, some knew each other, some didn't. But the way that they have integrated themselves into the lives of our players and the way that they have made our players' success their success is really been fun to watch. And it's really a big part of what I'm so excited about right now. You know, that we have this great spirit throughout our whole team, and I think that's one of the real core elements of it. So, you know, like I said last year, Mose was a rookie, you know, and we're a young team, we got a young coach, and I think he got better through the year, and I sit there in his office now, and we bounce things around, and he's a different guy, you know, he's more experienced, understands kind of, you know, what he's dealing with more. You know, we're I think growing, and part of that just comes with time. So, you know, one of the things that we really benefited from with the last iteration of our team was just that continuity, you know. And when you do what we did, you have to kind of like start that over. And I feel like this summer we're really starting to feel that. Everybody's been here a year. The families know one another, you know, and so it's really important. It's the kind of glue, you know, that kind of like we build our summers on and we build our development on. So, you know, it's important. It's an important factor, and I think, you know, Coach has done a great job, and the whole staff has.
Okay, we'll go final 2. We'll go Kobe and then Adam.
You touched on this a little bit when talking about the second-round picks. Have you been a little bit concerned about getting maybe too young with your roster, you know, having, you know, the first pick, but obviously, you know, 2 in the second round? I guess, has there been also conversations about maybe consolidating those picks and trying to get into the back half of the first round?
Yes. I think that's a conversation that kind of goes hand in hand with Tim's, you know, is you know, what are you trying to do? And we need to, we don't want to compromise our timeline. We don't want to compromise, something that can be sustainable, but we also have to elevate standards and expectations. So, and the last part, which is kind of part of your question too, I think, Kobe, is I think it's important that when you do what we're trying to do right now, that the players feel that there's a pathway for them. So, yeah, we do pay attention to that. How many young guys can we get through the woods? How many can we? They're not all going to make it through, maybe, but they have to have a chance. And so we do pay attention to that. We are having discussions with teams. I mean, because we're a team that has 2 early second-round picks, and those second-round picks are treated different financially to in the salary cap, especially to tax teams, it kind of puts us in a position to have some conversations. That said, we've also we're trying to develop a comfort level with where the players we like will go in the draft, and if we feel that that we'll get a good player with our second-round picks, there's no reason to try to bop around.
And then last one for me, Terrence Ross has made it clear early in the offseason that he would maybe like a different situation, maybe likes to be somewhere else. What's the dialogue been like with him, throughout the offseason? I guess talking with him about what he wants or what he prefers.
So, listen, T's been in this week. The thing about T is he's a true professional. He's a great guy. I will say this: when we made all those trades last season, T kind of got caught holding the bag, And so we recognize that, and we've had discussions about that. And T loves the Magic. He loves the locker room. I will say that part of the development of our young players, T can claim some responsibility for that. He's helped shepherd some of our young guys through last season. He's just a good teammate, a good professional, and obviously we'll be exploring options with our whole roster. I will say that if Terrence Ross is on this team next year, I know that he's going to embrace the opportunity to grow the young guys up and show the league that he can still play. And with that, conversations are always ongoing league-wide.
Jeff, so let's assume that you make the pick at number 1. Now that you've gone through everything and seen everybody, what would be your confidence level that you would be getting a guy who would be a huge positive addition to the team, a franchise-changing guy?
Okay, that's 2 different questions right there. I'll say this, I never would put the pressure on anyone picking 15, 8, or 1 that you're getting a franchise guy. I don't think that's fair to do to a guy who hasn't played a minute in the NBA yet. I'm very confident that we're going to get a player with size, talent, IQ, skill, character, everything that we want to be about. And we're going to add him to our already exciting group of young players. And we'll put him in a position for him to fully maximize his potential. And, beyond that, it goes where it goes. I think kind of predicting stars is probably a fool's errand a little bit. I mean, I could mention a dozen guys that are NBA stars that, no one would have dreamt of becoming that. And I can flip it too, So I just think that, me, I try not to label things too much. And we just want to draft someone who's going to really bring the characteristics that we're looking for and put them in the best possible position.